Welcome. If you're just joining us, please feel free to drop your name, your organization, where you're from, say hi in the chat. And here's the agenda. I've announced the next training dates. I want to talk about the regional conference. So that's going to be Saturday, April 26th at the Society for Ethical Culture in Manhattan. Hopefully this isn't news. Hopefully everyone's gotten the multiple emails we've sent about this. Definitely RSVP if you're planning to attend. We would really love to have you. We're going to share the keynote speaker soon. Actually, maybe I'll have Catherine share it and then we have a video from her we can share in an updated email. And we'll be able to send the agenda. So I'm gonna email more details about the conference in my follow-up email to this meeting. So we'll share the agenda for the conference, the keynote speaker, the panels, etc. We're also hopefully planning some fun activities before or after the conference, because if you've never been to Manhattan before, there's tons of stuff to do. So I'm trying to figure out if we can go to the Natural History Museum or the Met Museum of Art and get Joe's Pizza, that kind of thing. So stay tuned for that. Now I'm going to pass it over to Catherine wait, actually, before I do that, I'm going to put I don't have the link to RSVP for the conference in the agenda, so I'm going to drop that in the chat right here.
While you're doing that, do you want me to chime in, Alexis?
Yes, go ahead.
Sure. So I am so excited that there are new folks and faith folks on this call tonight. This is the monthly local groups and affiliates meeting for Beyond Plastics, and we are going to have a special faith breakout session shortly. But as Alexis mentioned, at our upcoming conference in Manhattan on April 26th, our keynote speaker will be a faith-based speaker. So we are having the Reverend Mira Salawani Joyner from the Riverside Church in New York City, a known climate activist in the region, and also is on the Eco Preacher cohort, which I think Derek Weston is on the call, convenes. So we are honored to have her as our keynote and hoping to have a great faith contingency show up for that as well.
And Catherine, do you want to just get right into talking about the toolkit?
Sure. I mean, we're gonna jump in on a breakout session, right?
Yes, but I think we wanted to address the whole group about it so that they
Sure.
know. Why don't you just introduce what your breakout session is going to be so people can join if they want to?
Absolutely. Okay, so let me first drop the link in the chat. So if you um, want to join us for the faith-based breakout, we're going to be workshopping not only this toolkit, which Beyond Plastics has created, but we have a special guest, Derek Weston from Creation Justice Ministries, will be speaking about their toolkit, which they launched last year called Plastic Jesus. And so he's going to kick us off by talking about some of the more theological framing, which is both Judeo and Christian framework because it relies very heavily on Hebrew scriptures. And then is going to sort of pass the baton to me to talk about our toolkit, which moves sort of beyond what you can do in terms of raising awareness in congregations into taking action. So that's what we're going to be talking about.
It sounds really exciting. I love this direction. So that's all we have for announcements. Does anyone else have anything they want to share before we go into breakout rooms where we spend most of the meeting?
How do we get to the breakout room where we're going to talk about Beyond Plastic Jesus?
Yeah, I will open the breakout rooms. The main space is going to be the faith-based space, so stay here if you want to hear about Plastic Jesus. Any John Prine bans in here. And then I'll also open a plastic bag ban or a plastic ban slash skip the stuff slash bag bans room in an artificial turf room. But I saw Brandy had her hand up. Did you want to give us an update, Brandy? What's going on in Houston?
Yeah, I wanted to share some exciting news. It's not public yet, so I can't share like overshare, but we've been working with the city council in Houston, and come Earth Day, there's going to be a big kickoff of a push to remove bottles, plastic bottles and plastic bags from city council, and challenge all their staff to go reuse and assess it at the end of the 100 days. And while they're doing that, they're going to make it public. We've got organizations all over excited about it. The zoo is excited about it. They donated the cups. So it's coming together to be a pretty big deal. And we're really, really thrilled that the council would work with us on this, given our other limitations.
I love that. And thank you for sharing. That was just the antidote I needed to reading yesterday that Trump signed an executive order banning paper straws in the federal government. So, which is kind of silly, but
Real.
I
Yeah.
love that you're taking this local action, especially in Texas, and that you're having success with it. Thanks, Brandy.
Thanks for letting me share. It's definitely a good happy.
Jusara, do you want to share something?
Yes, hi. I just wanted to ask if is this maybe not the right meeting to if there's any follow up on the rally in Albany. This is the first meeting after the rally, or did I miss anything?
We had a New York call yesterday evening. I
Ah,
need to send the follow-up for that. Um, but essentially we are in good shape. And if anybody here is also in New York that wants an update on the the state of the bill, I didn't get to it today, but I'm going to send the NYND follow-up email tomorrow.
okay, great. Thank you so much. I had it on my calendar yesterday, but I thought I had just added by mistake and it was actually today. But yes, thank you so much. It was great to be there. Thank you.
Yes, of course. And we're in good shape in New York. And um, in other good news, there is a strong extended producer responsibility bill in New Jersey that passed out of committee yesterday after 2 years of hard work. And this bill is 50% reduction of plastic packaging. It's got the recycling targets. It bans certain toxic chemicals and puts a fee on packaging um, to reimburse municipalities for recycling and waste disposal. And it also prohibits chemical recycling from counting as recycling. So Judith was in Trenton, the capital of New Jersey, on Monday for that vote, and she said all the plastics industry people were freaking out and they were like having a huddle. She sent us a picture of it. I can show you. But it passed out of committee anyway, so it's really exciting that that bill is moving, and we are looking good in New York as well. We have 67 sponsors for the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act in the Assembly, so we're only 9 away from a majority of co-sponsors in the Assembly, which is our goal. So we're in good shape. And if you don't know either of those campaigns and you live in New York or New Jersey, please reach out to me because that's totally separate from this call and we would love to plug you into that. Carol, go ahead.
Yeah, I live in New Jersey, and so I would like to get more information about who to call and all of that and timing.
Yes, so if you could email Christina, Carol, she can plug you into all the efforts there.
Great, thanks.
Do you have her email?
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't know,
There's
but
two Carols. I didn't realize that. Okay. It's just Christina Dubin at Bennington.edu. If you're in New
okay.
Jersey, reach out to Christina. She's the main organizer there. And if you're in New York, you can reach out to me. Okay.
Okay,
So
thank you.
you're welcome. Glad to plug you into this. Carol Sullivan.
Yes, I'm from Center Harbor, New Hampshire. And when I went through my Beyond Plastics training, one of the things that Judith mentioned was that we should try to keep on top of our federal legislators, our senators and our US representatives about plastic legislation and where it's going, and try to get them to back this legislation. Now we're in a situation where our members of Congress probably have a lot of other stuff on their minds besides this, but I just wanted to mention that the New Hampshire Network Plastic Working Group is doing both statewide and federal contacting. And we have initiated some meetings with two of our members of Congress that are coming up very soon. And I was wondering whether any of the other groups that within this bigger affiliate group are looking at federal legislators and talking to them to find out whether they support some of this federal legislation. If so, I'd be interested to know what your approach is going to be going forward, because we're going to be meeting with our legislators in a couple weeks, and we would like to share what other states might be doing. So that's just a question for all of you. Are the subgroups that you are with talking to your US senators and representatives at all about federal plastic legislation? That's it.
Anybody want to jump in and answer that?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Uh, Talking to the feds, no, because there's no way anything is going to pass federally right now with the current makeup and a president who wants to reinstall plastic straws and ban paper straws. Here in New Jersey, we're seeing that our best way forward is on local and state action, which is exactly what we're doing with things like Skip the Stuff, which makes you ask for plastic utensils when you get takeout food. Some of us, it's not through Beyond Plastics, are working on a plastic construction sawdust containment local ordinance with hopes that someday it'll go statewide. We are pushing for the statewide Skip the Stuff bill to become law, to get a vote in the legislature. So we see that as the best way forward in the current political atmosphere, as local and state action.
Thank you. We're doing some of the same within the state of New Hampshire, but we did want to stay in touch with our federal people just to let them know that the state is going full steam ahead, and hope that that gives them a little bit of energy themselves to fight what they're dealing with right now. So, but thank you for the input.
Can I ask real quickly, is your governor is a female Republican, correct?
Yes, yes.
Would she sign anything statewide nature?
She might, because she understands that the economy of New Hampshire depends on natural resources. And we have forests, we have trees, we have mountains, big lakes. So poisoning this wonderful environment is going to be very bad for the state economically. And so she's being approached by a lot of groups, including members of our New Hampshire Environment and Energy and Climate Network. And so we're hoping to make a dent in her consciousness about this.
Unfortunately, the economy of New Jersey depends on having the most Superfund sites in the nation, but that's another issue. Good luck to you.
Thanks.
I just want to add to this federal conversation, as Lori asked in the chat, what kinds of federal plastic legislation is in the works. I think Brian's right. We're not going to see anything good pass in this current House. we really didn't have much chance of anything good passing before this election either. So it's not like that situation has changed. But what we're more at risk of is bad bills being passed. So particularly, we know that the American Chemistry Council is shopping around for a sponsor for a bad chemical recycling bill. They introduced this last year, but one of the members who I can't remember his name, who was the sponsor, retired, and I'm not sure if the other one won re-election, but they're looking for a Democratic sponsor for the American Chemistry Council's bill to promote chemical recycling, which basically their strategy to promote chemical recycling is to deregulate waste incineration by saying that plastic waste is not solid waste, that it is fuel or feedstock, and that pyrolysis and gasification is not, they want to argue that it's not incineration by making that argument. Because the Clean Air Act says any burning of any solid waste is considered incineration, they're kind of playing this word salad by saying because plastic isn't solid waste, it's not considered incineration legally. That's what they want to do with this bill. That's what we've seen in other states. So if you want to reach out to your Congress people, I definitely don't discourage it. I would educate them on what chemical recycling is. Say, can you keep your eye out for this bill? Let me know if this is being introduced. Do not support it. Please educate your colleagues on the dangers of chemical recycling. And you can share with them our report from October of 2023, which has been updated because more chemical recycling facilities have gone under since that report was released. So I'll put that report in the chat. And then we're hearing some rumors of like a straight recycling bill or like a recycling, almost like a recycling needs assessment. So we're talking to that member's office, it's Senator Whitehouse, but nothing has really, there's no language yet, so we don't really know. So that's where we're at federally. And then Break Free from Plastic is putting together a list of what we're calling movable members. So these are members who could be swayed to vote against a bad American Chemistry Council bill, or a bill that would dismantle TSCA, the Toxic Substances Control Act, or a bill that would dismantle the Clean Air Act. So I don't have that list of movable members yet, but as soon as I do, I'll be sure to share it with you, because if it's one of your members, it's even more critical that you contact them.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah. Any other questions, comments?
Can I add one more thing, please?
Yes, of course, Brian.
I just saw across my feed that Montgomery County, Maryland, just passed Tuesday a plastic bag ban.
Mm.
And doubled their tax on paper bags to 10 cents. So great local.
That's fantastic. I don't know. I think, was that Adrian? Are either of them on the call? Dee Dee, is Dee Dee on the call? No. All right. Well, it's been shared with the Google group. All right, so I want to make sure that Catherine has enough time for her breakout room, and so we're going to open the rooms now. Again, stay here if you want to hear the faith-based discussion about Plastic Jesus, and you could also go to the plastic bans room, which is where we talk about bag bans, skip the stuff, that kind of thing, or the artificial turf room, which is going to be facilitated by Diane Wolke.
Where is the toolkit discussion going to be?
The faith-based toolkit's going to be here, so just stay here if you want to stay here. And if you need me to assign you, let me know.
Sorry, I just was able to join. Where is the second group?
The plastic bans?
Yeah.
I can move you there.
Thanks.
Will the main room here be recorded for those who would like to hear more than one breakout room?
This room will be recorded. The other rooms do not get recorded.
So we'll be able to hear this later. Okay, thank you. That's great. Thank you so much.
Anyone else need me to send you to a room?
Yes.
Carol, where do you want to go?
Plastic bands.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Plastic bags as plastic bands as well, Lori O'Loughlin.
I'll send you there.
We're not
Okay.
seeing any choice of the rooms. Do you have them somewhere?
You should be able to see them if you go to the bottom and click breakout rooms.
You might have 3 dots that say more and then have to go to breakout rooms.
Oh,
Okay,
Got it. Thank you.
got it.
Anybody else want me to assign you?
Looks
hi
like maybe
there. I'm Tracy Beckert. I'd love to go to the plastic bands room.
All right, I'm going to send you there now.
Thanks so much.
All right, so I'm going to let Catherine get started. I'll stay here for a couple more minutes, and if you want to go to a different room, just put it in the chat and I'll assign you. But otherwise, Catherine, the floor is yours.
Thank you all so much. I'm so glad. I forgot to ask if it was going to be recorded, but some folks who wanted to join us this evening can't. And so I'm glad that that is going to be possible now. So if we haven't met before, my name is Reverend Catherine Bilkey. I am ordained in the Presbyterian Church USA, and I work as the development manager for Beyond Plastics. But the other hat that I wear is that I get to work on faith partnerships for a portion of my time, which is, of course, a passion of mine. So welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us. Will you please, if you're able, offer words of welcome to one another in the chat, and please introduce yourself with your name, your community, and where you are from if you have not done so already. And as you are doing that, I am just going to invite us all to have a centering moment. And this candle's really tall. I'm going to light this candle and invite you all to just take some deep breaths. So I want to acknowledge now that we are always in the presence of the sacred. And even though we are here in this digital space, we are connected to one another through our breath. We share our breath with ancestors, with animal life, with plant life. And our breath gives us life, which is a gift, always worth preserving, always worth fighting for, no matter how bad things get. So, amen. And it's still lit, even though you can't see it, but it's just not in front of my face. One very small housekeeping thing I want to mention before we get started is that I've had such an overwhelming response to the release of the Beyond Plastics Toolkit for houses of worship. And while that's an excellent problem to have, I haven't been able to keep up with the responses that have come into my email box. And so to deal with that, I have set up a Calendly where you can schedule I have some office hours in there, and you can schedule time with me if there are anything you want to discuss, or so I can hear more about what you're working on and how I might best be able to support you. So I just put that link there in the chat if anybody would like to follow up with me. And you may want to, although Alexis will send out a follow-up email, and I can provide any of these links in a follow-up. I would suggest maybe opening up something, because we're going to share a bunch of links tonight if you want to be able to save any of those for later. So the agenda this evening is that first I'd like to welcome our special guest, Derek Weston from Creation Justice Ministries, who's going to talk about their resource, Plastic Jesus, which they put out last year. And then I will provide an overview of the Beyond Plastics Toolkit for faith communities. And then we'll have some discussion time to answer any questions or to work through any challenges you have had or foresee in implementing with some of the suggestions that are outlined in either resource. And finally, we have a real gift in that well-known hymn writer Carolyn Gillette has produced a plastics hymn for free use by congregations, which is now a part of the updated toolkit. And if I can figure out how to share that and make sure the sound is right, we will conclude with the recording of that hymn, and the sheet music is now available in the toolkit. So with that, I'd like to introduce Derek, Director of Theological Education and Formation at Creation Justice Ministries. Derek is co-host of the Food and Faith podcast. In fact, I first met Derek at the Just Food Conference at the Princeton Farminary. He also wrote the book, The Just Kitchen, Invitations to Sustainability, Cooking, Connection, and Celebration. And he also convenes the Eco Preacher cohort in partnership with the BTS Center, which I am also a part of. And while it is linked in the Faith Toolkit, I also just want to provide a link here now to download Plastic Jesus if you don't already have it. And with that, I'm going to spotlight Derek, if I can find you. Oh, there you are. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you all for having me here. It's good to be with you. As Catherine said, I am the theological education, or I'm the director of theological education and formation at Creation Justice Ministries. We are an organization that started a little over 40 years ago as the Eco Justice Working Group of the National Council of Churches. And then a little over a decade ago, spun off as our own organization and are currently working on our own 501c3 status. We are represented by 30. We have representatives of 39 denominations on our board. That includes most of the major mainline denominations, several of the historically Black denominations, and a few Greek Orthodox communions as well. So just really glad to be with you. Glad to be with you all. I don't know, I'd be able to share my screen. Oh, I can. Excellent. So just a little background before I jump in. Every year, Creation Justice Ministries has had the tradition of producing what we have in the past called an Earth Day resource. This year, we're doing a little bit of different framing for it. But last year's Earth Day resource was Plastic Jesus. And what's nice is that in this particular context, I don't have to share with you all of the science and all of the all of the things. I'm guessing you all know about the dangers of plastics. I don't think I have to do any of that work here. But what I do want to talk about a little bit here is sort of the theological work that we can do with speaking to congregations about these issues. So when we started thinking about plastics and started thinking about this Plastic Jesus as our theme for the year, one of the first questions that kind of came into our mind is, how do we talk about plastic? Plastic is nowhere in the Bible. So we started thinking about, so what are the analogs, what are the parallels to thinking about plastic that we find in Scripture? So first and foremost, obviously thinking a little bit about sin and the ways in which we have so often think about sin in our churches as sort of this individualistic act, but yet in the historical witness of the Scripture, sin is more often a communal thing. It's more often as a society's turning towards something that is against the will of God. The other piece we thought is idolatry, thinking about putting our worship, putting our energy, putting our time into things that have been made with human hands, as opposed to putting our attention, our love, and our affection to God. And that plastic and our use of plastic has very much, in some ways, become an idol in our society. And then sort of the other thing around theological framing was thinking about limitation. One of the things that we recognize throughout the scriptural witness is that God asks us to live within limits. God asks us to live within certain restraints, and those restraints are so often for our own good, and they are for the good of our community. They're for the good of our neighbor, and so we took those three theological ideas and thought, what are some scriptural bases we can use to talk about this issue of plastics in our society. So, one to start with, the kind of obvious, the one that for me felt obvious was the story of the golden calf. That Moses goes to spend some time with God, and in the course of Moses spending some time with God, the people of Israel get anxious. They need something physical and tangible to worship, to put their attention on, something that they can say that they made. And Aaron, Moses' brother, um, goes and collects the gold from the folks in the community. They take the gold, they form it in a mold and cast an image of a calf, and they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." That so often we need something that we have made, something that is tangible, that becomes the center of um, our worship, of our attention, of our resources. And if we look at the way the space that plastics are occupying in our economy and in our society, plastic has very much become that thing that we've made from human hands that gives us convenience, that gives us ease, that gives us security in a lot of ways. And so thinking about the ways that plastic has become a golden calf for us, an element of worship. And again, it's so the fact that we're having this conversation on a day or a day after the president decided to sign an executive order bringing back plastic straws into government buildings just kind of seems like the most ridiculous thing in the world. But here we are, our particular golden calf that we decided to hold up. We, as we think about plastic, we think a lot about what does it mean for us to have um, just kind of constantly be in need of more and more things, more and more stuff. And I love the 23rd Psalm, and this is one of the scriptures that we spend a little bit of time with, because when it talks about our being satisfied, it talks about us being satiated, and all of the things that are satiating us in this text are things that come from creation. It's water, it's grass, it's food, it's the fellowship of others. It's nothing that is extractive. It is nothing that is polluting. It is being able to be in God's creation that actually puts the psalmist into this space of not wanting. And so much of our plastic issue, not all of it, recognizing that there are plenty of helpful uses for plastic in our culture, but so many of the uses just come from just kind of our constant desire for more and more things, our constant desire for more and more stuff, our constant desire to fill our lives with um, baubles and trinkets. And so plastic becomes one of the ways that we fulfill that. And so meditating on this 23rd Psalm, the Lord is our shepherd, and that God leads us into creation and away from the human made to find our joy and to find our satisfaction. And finally, thinking about our limits, thinking theologically about our limitations. And these couple of verses are um, from the uh, popular story, the story of the Tower of Babel. And one of the things that I think is kind of core to this story is that humanity says there's nothing we can't do. Let us build ourselves a city and a tower to the sky, and let us make a name for ourselves. That this is about glorifying us. This is about the ways that what we can build, what we can create, ultimately um, just props us up. And again, I think what we have seen with plastics is not so much a does this fulfill a need, but is this something we can do, whether or not it is good for the planet, whether it's not as good for humans, whether it's not good for consumption, whether or not we have thought about the long-term consequences of having these things in the environment. So thinking about this as a text to think about what happens when when humanity pushes itself outside of the limits that God has for us. Within this resource, you will see, I'm so grateful for this invitation because I feel like in some ways, the toolkit that Catherine's about to talk about, this kind of feels like a part one and a part two. That what we did with Plastic Jesus, I think really heavily was give you some worship resources. There are prayers that you can use. There's some original music that you can use, sermon starters based off of the text that I just presented, some theological ideas and theological framing ideas to think about how you talk about how you begin these conversations in your faith communities. And the toolkit that Catherine's going to present to you is such a great practical resource in terms of thinking about advocacy, thinking about your consumer practices, thinking about um, all of the ways that this comes into real life. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to her, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the end after she's done.
Thank you so much. Let me see if I can actually spotlight myself now. Replace spotlight. Okay, there I am. Well, thank you so much, Derek, for being with us. I have put the link to the Beyond Plastics Toolkit for Faith Communities in the chat. This is intended for use by houses of worship of all faith traditions. And the first thing that I want to say in that respect is that this is intended to be a living document, which is why we created it in Google Docs, because it can be amended and updated as our movement grows together. So it will only be strengthened by your contributions, which we'll be certainly glad to highlight. If you have an article that you wrote for the newsletter of your synagogue or parish or Sangha, with your permission, and in giving full acknowledgement of your authorship, I will add it to our collection. If you have academic papers or a section of a book that you wrote dedicated to plastics, we are happy to link to those as well. In fact, I heard from our friend, the Reverend Dr. Abby Mohopt, that she will be citing the toolkit in her upcoming anthology of eco-theology. But all of those resources, we will keep them limited to the subject of plastics. We certainly care about climate in general, clean energy, nature-based solutions, but this resource is really meant to drill down on plastics. Secondly, this resource is by no means meant to be comprehensive of the entire faith landscape and its engagement on this issue, albeit somewhat limited. But I'm trusting that by putting it out there, the more hearts and hands that come together to support this movement, we are going to co-create something together that is reflective of a diverse breadth of traditions coming together in this common cause on plastic pollution. Each of us adding our own unique voice and our own unique perspectives. So basically, I wish I had PowerPoint, so I'm not screen sharing anything, but hopefully you have the toolkit there in front of you on your screen as well. There are 3 basic steps outlined in the toolkit, and the first is speaking the truth. We know that there is nowhere on this planet that we can escape from micro and nanoplastics. They're not only on the highest peak on this planet and the deepest trenches of the earth, but they're in almost every major organ of our bodies. To me, this is to mar the image of God within all of us and within all of life. But because Derek spoke so eloquently on some of the avenues for theological framing, and I'm hoping that when we open it up for discussion, you all will want to share, lift up some other perspectives on that tonight. I want to move from the speak the truth step into the walk the talk step. So the next step outlined in the toolkit is called walk the talk, which means you're acknowledging the truth of the plastic pollution crisis, but now you want to take action. And one really important thing I want to emphasize that we at Beyond Plastics are constantly trying to convey to our audience, no matter how active people are in this movement, we keep drilling home the fact that plastics recycling is not the answer to the plastic pollution crisis. Please keep recycling your aluminum, your glass, your cardboard, your paper. Those things can be recycled infinitely. Plastics recycling is not the same. The plastics recycling rate in the United States is less than 6%, and only about 9% of all the material ever produced has been effectively recycled. The reason for that is that plastics are so varied in their chemical makeup. There are additives to give plastics their various properties and colors. Any combination of 16,000 different chemicals that make up plastics make recycling them ineffective. But we've also been purposefully lied to for a long time about the recyclability of plastics by the industry in an effort to justify not only the continued production of new plastics, but the rapid acceleration of production whereby plastic waste is expected to double by 2030. California Attorney General Rob Bonta actually filed suit against ExxonMobil in September of last year. And his suit outlines the extensive campaign of deceit around the recyclability of plastics since the 1970s. Ones and twos, the PETs and the HDPEs are technically recyclable, but even they can only be recycled once. And they have to be added to virgin material in order to be recycled. So none of that is ideal. But I've spoken with a lot of congregations about plastic and mid councils and groups within faith communities, and this always comes up. In fact, a lot of houses of worship have a ministry where they actually collect, for example, the film that comes on like a loaf of bread and package those up and send them away to a recycler. And while this might make us feel better about our own dependence on products that come in plastic packaging, this is just not the solution. If they get recycled at all, and some of the activists in our network have even put those little Apple AirTags in plastic film that they've tried to recycle and found that, they're in China or across the world somewhere or in a landfill. If in fact they get recycled, they might go into building construction materials like decking or siding, outdoor furniture, park benches. These are more flammable, more toxic, and like all plastics, they shed and leach into the environment. And the process itself is polluting. It emits volatile organic compounds into the air, into those communities where facilities are situated. So I know I spent a lot of time talking about that, but it's from experience that I know we have to continue driving this point home, and speaking the truth that plastics recycling is not working. And lastly, promoting recycling just participates in that industry narrative that is trying to shift the blame away from them and onto us, because it's we consumers need to do a better job at recycling, so that they of course can continue business as usual. um, so on an individual level, we can only do so much, but what the toolkit proposes in this step of walking the talk is, in your house of worship, instituting a ban on single plastics in your congregation. And it offers sample resolutions, which you can borrow language from. Um, there are a sample memo in there that you can share with other groups that share your facilities with you. There's signage to remind volunteers and building partners of your commitment to purge single-use plastics from your operations. Because of course, things do sneak back into use, especially if you do coffee hour with a different volunteer every week. Um, oh, and that's a very good question about, bioplastics. We at Beyond Plastics have a report on bioplastics and a checklist to verify whether or not it is actually truly compostable or doesn't have chemicals in it. So those are both hyperlinked in the toolkit as well. Thank you for that question, Eric. So there are a bunch of ideas in there as to items that you can replace, and I'm sure everyone on this call has some wisdom as to how to actually implement some of these changes. So I'm looking forward to our discussion. My own contribution is that every Easter, when we would send the children out at the church to do the Easter egg hunt, we had a system in place to collect all of those plastic Easter eggs, so that they could be reused every single year. And just some of those little logistical tweaks that we can make are a way that we can be of support to one another with ideas like that. So lastly, the third step outlined in the toolkit is walking the halls, which is really just a natural extension of the first two, but working on a broader and more expansive circle of concern. I love the quote from Cornel West where he says, "Justice is what love looks like in public." So our issue is not a partisan issue. In fact, a recent polling from Oceana, released just a few days ago, reveals there is broad bipartisan support in the public for plastic reduction policies. 81% of US voters support reducing the amount of plastic produced. But while it's not a partisan issue, it is a political issue, because, like that quote, it's about extending love beyond just our household, our community, and outwards into those who experience the greatest impacts of plastic pollution. And that's where we need policy. And it's also needed because corporations don't self-regulate. I have a chart that I often use in my presentations of corporate voluntary pledges to reduce reliance on virgin plastics. And every single company on that chart, Coke, Pepsi, Unilever, are falling way short in their own commitments. And why would we expect anything different? They have no legal obligation, no financial incentive to do so. So we have no other option except for to legislate. And for us as people of faith to advocate, which is really just speaking the truth, but in the halls of power. So we at Beyond Plastics have sample policy campaigns that you can work on, from bag bans, skip the stuff campaigns, campaigns that oppose synthetic turf. We also fight proposed petrochemical facilities, garbage incinerators, and chemical recycling facilities permitting. I've also highlighted in the toolkit our model extended producer responsibility bill. Very close, as Alexis mentioned earlier in the call, very close versions of this bill are currently being considered in New York and in New Jersey at the state level. And we have these types of campaigns running in 40 states across the US, including DC and the Virgin Islands. So if you are not already affiliated with Beyond Plastics, we encourage you to find a Beyond Plastics local group or affiliate near you, or you can affiliate your creation care or climate justice team with Beyond Plastics. And I will link the link to the toolkit, but I will also link it in the chat once we get our conversation started. And again, we do have our upcoming conference in New York City on April 26th, where Reverend Mira Salawani Joyner, climate activist and minister of the Riverside Church in New York City, will be our keynote speaker. So now I just want to offer some space. I'm going to unspotlight myself and offer some space, because I know there are probably so many perspectives and solutions that people are working on in their own communities or have at least discussed. And also want to open up space to lift up some of the struggles with getting this conversation going in congregations, or pushback that you might anticipate on any of this. So with that, if you could just use that little raise hand gesture function, and I will call on you. Peggy.
I live in Southport, North Carolina. Wish we'd get rid of plastic bags in North Carolina. Maryland I just heard Maryland did. That's great. And there are 8 other states that don't use plastic, or there's some that don't use styrofoam. So we got a grant from Ocean Friendly Environment, and it's out of Wilmington, North Carolina, plus Ocean Plastic Project. And we have sustainable products in our kitchen, takeout. Some are made with cornstarch, so they're compostable. And we just skip everything. We don't let people come in with styrofoam, and we use plates. We're trying to figure out the dishwasher, electricity, and all those things also, because we have a green church. So we have other things we have to look at. But we went out to the restaurants with a brochure, and some of them are ocean friendly establishments now, because they're using products that are more sustainable and skipping the straw. So we're going to send Trump, I think, a stainless steel straw.
Because his beef is that they don't work, right? He's like, we're bringing back straws that work. Stainless steel works just fine.
I know. I have a water bottle with one in it. But we don't really need straw. But they are skipping. I mean, I think younger people and starting businesses are more aware, and they're trying. And we live on the ocean. I mean, the turtles and the land, and it's. I can't believe the state has not done away with. It gets very political. I think the Outer Banks pretty much uses, makes people bring bags, and we got Aldi's and all these other restaurants that Costco, they don't have plastic bag, so it's too expensive, and people hate them. But sometimes we use them for postable for dogs and cat litter. But picking up littering, we also pick up litter in our community, so that's part of our charge trying to help electricity. It's hard. It's a lot of stuff going on.
Well, thank you.
And also we give LED bulbs to Habitat. So we collect inkjet cartridges, send them off and get reimbursed to a company.
Great work. Thank you so much for sharing, Peggy. All right, others? And questions can be directed to Derek as well. Christy.
So we have a pretty robust green team. We've done composting. We have a soup kitchen, and we've completely switched that all over to composting. And we are just getting ready on Earth Day to set off a plastics campaign. And I don't know, with some of those we wanted to show a movie, but some of those movies are pretty darn depressing. And we're trying to figure out a way to engage people without totally just terrorizing them. So that's kind of, I guess I haven't read completely. I have the toolkit. I haven't read through it all, but I don't know. How do you engage without making people so overwhelmed? It's kind of my.
If you are looking for an alternative to some of the films, there's a great one called Microplastic Madness, and it's produced by a group called Cafeteria Culture. In fact, I should have included this in the film in the toolkit, and I would see. This is why we're having this conversation. It's about kids in New York City who work to get plastics out of their cafeteria. And it's really encouraging, and it focuses on action, the things that we can do that are within our control. And even if you do show a film that's one of the depressing ones, in fact, I'm showing a new one in where I live in Hudson, New York, next month called Plastic People, that focuses really heavily on the health impacts of microplastics. Following up those conversations with action items to empower your audience with a sense of agency is how, you have to pair those things up together, because the information is heavy and it does provoke all those kind of feelings of guilt and climate anxiety. And, we want people to come away with a sense that there is something they can do. And we've already heard tonight on this call, there are encouraging things happening at the state and local level.
Yeah, and just one follow-up, we felt that at least when they're starting to realize it's affecting our health, that may motivate people more than they don't see where the plastic goes. If they don't do a beach cleanup, they don't know where it is. But if they actually start to know it's in them, then that might motivate some folks. So, but getting them to the movie would be the hard part, maybe. Thanks.
Thank you. Brian DM'd me because he can't raise his hand, and then I'll get to everybody else. But go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I mentioned this to Judith Hank a little while ago. I'm wondering if we shouldn't have some sort of almost civil disobedience campaign among members, and I'd just like to hear input on this, in such that, we get all this plastic from the supermarket, and in New Jersey, the Food Council is opposing a packaging reduction law. The Food Council represents all the grocery stores in New Jersey. And so my idea is, why don't we take all of the plastic food packaging we get and clean it, of course, after we've used it. And instead of throwing it away, because most of it is not recyclable, why don't we return it to the grocery stores?
We do there is a campaign, like it's called a Take Back. And we do have a campaign that we have a toolkit for, I think, at Beyond Plastics, for taking things back to the grocery store. If Alexis, are you in this room? No, but if Alexis will be able to give that, it's on our website. But I love it.
Okay, I will look for that. But I just think that it's about time that we make those responsible for pushing this stuff on us take care of it. I mean, why should I as a taxpayer have to do this? I mean, as far as pay for the tipping fees and the pickup and the fake recycling and all that sort of stuff. Why not let the grocery stores pay for it? Because they're the ones who sell it.
Good
I'll,
point.
I'll look for that take back. Thank you.
Yes, and if I don't find it by the end of this, then I'll ask Alexis to send it to you. But I've got your info. All right, Jasara.
Hi. Um, Thank you so much for the presentation. So, Catherine, I have a friend who is a reverend here in the community where I live, and in fact, I'm having a little Valentine's party on Friday. Would you say that the best approach for me to get her perhaps involved is to just share with her some of these links that you've put on the chat?
Yeah, I mean, the toolkit is meant to just provide a pathway, a guide through a certain process. I think the facts on the ground of the plastic pollution crisis are compelling. And so certainly, you are well versed in that. And um, that's I think why we need to engage faith leaders is because we need to get this message out from pulpits and all of the arenas where faith leaders have a voice. And if you can influence her, then she can influence others. So yeah, definitely pass along the faith toolkit and I'd be more than happy to meet her and discuss with her as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I did copy the Calendly link as well. Yeah, I gave a presentation on plastic and human health to the community. It was a sold out event and she participated. So she's well aware of all the the terrible repercussions on our body and in the environment. So that's already halfway. But yeah, I'm gonna try. This is a great approach. I think it's wonderful because yeah, she does have a voice in the community and she can reach out to a lot more people. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I look forward. Luz, I have been wanting to actually connect with you for the longest time because I am from St. Louis, Missouri. Luz Rooney is the next person with her hand up. And I remember that you're from St. Louis, but I also grew up spending my summers in Wisconsin. So I'm a double Missouri, Wisconsin person too.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much. It's great to see you here. I just wanted to make a comment, and I don't see how my camera is not coming up. Wanted to make a comment regarding the the microplastic madness documentary. This documentary this is in regards to Christina's question regarding movies and how they're so depressing. The microplastic madness, the audience for this movie is school children, because the movie is a documentary of 2 years of work of fourth graders and fifth graders in Brooklyn, actually, who first dealt with styrofoam. But it's a pathway that explains how children can do audits of the plastic in the school, whether that it is provided by the school or that children bring it from home, and present this to city councils so that they can start working on legislation. So the microplastic madness, you can see the documentary for free in schools. And there's also an amazing I guess, guide as to how people like us can go into schools to connect with not only the food department, but also facilities, and for children to also look at the economics of the impact of getting plastics and styrofoam out of the schools. But again, the audience will be children or schools. Thank you.
I'm going to put the link for the Microplastic Madness contact on the chat for you, okay?
You're muted.
Sorry, Deborah Street, go right ahead.
I just wanted to ask the gentleman who talked about kind of taking all the plastic back to the grocery stores.
Mhm.
So I know we have in our area, well, I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland, where you take your plastic bags and put it in a bin at the grocery stores. And well, I don't know what they do with it. They may just throw it in the trash can. But what are you thinking that they would do with all those plastics?
That would be their problem. What I'm hoping is that it would raise awareness with the Food Council, i.e., the supermarkets, that they should join us in passing a statewide EPR or package reduction law, as opposed to opposing us, which is what they do now. If we let them, if it's a mass movement, an Arlo Guthrie sort of movement, where we let them take care of their plastic waste, maybe they'll realize they have more than they should and will encourage the food purveyors themselves to reduce the amount of plastic, and themselves, of course, with their delis and everything that's all wrapped in plastic, to cut down on that as well. That's the motivation for my idea.
Well, it would be an interesting idea if it happened across the whole United States that everybody went to their grocery store and put all the packaging right in the parking lot. And then maybe that would wake everybody up, maybe.
There's a Beatles song called Return to Sender. And I would return it to the purveyor.
Well,
And
you're in New Jersey, Brian. You could just go straight to the headquarters from Formosa and drop it off there.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, but we don't know which product is Formosa's and which is somebody's else. Well, not their product. They just do the raw pellets that become the wrapping. But yeah, we could go to Formosa as well and do something with them. But I think I don't think Formosa, because of their profit motivation, would do anything other than, how else are they going to make their money other than selling plastic? But certainly the grocery stores, they could switch to something compostable, or paper wrappings for the wraps that their deli department sells instead of plastic. These are all possibilities, and that's what I'd like to see happen. Support us instead of oppose us. Join the movement.
I like that approach. Eric?
Given that less than 6% of plastic is recyclable, that you have to use virgin plastic to recycle plastic anyway and all that, I just question how good it is to put plastic bottles and other plastic waste in the recycling bin. Because if it's not going to be recycled, where does it go and what do they do with it? I mean, I'm a part of a group here in Madison, Wisconsin that drinks a whole bunch of plastic bottles worth of like ice and Snapple and that sort of thing. And it seems futile. Sorry to be a downer.
Kathy, can I answer that?
Go right ahead, Brian.
Plastic bottles, recycling is not necessarily as fruitless as you might think. The plastic bottles are actually collected, and there is a market for them because if they're clean, they are ground up, if you will, by recyclers, and then used physically to make more plastic bottles. That's PET 1 and 2, you know, that chasing arrows triangle on the bottom of a bottle. And 5, I remember.
Yogurt.
Pardon?
Yogurt and
Yeah.
like what's
Polypropylene.
heavier.
What if it
heavier
doesn't have? What if it doesn't have the chasing arrows or anything?
There is a market for the 5s as well. Everything else, it's basically pointless. And that's why, you know, I'm thinking in terms of a protest movement, an encouragement movement, not a protest, to return to the grocery stores containers that maybe could be put in something else or reduced. I mean, I ordered some bamboo tubes on Amazon for a sad reason today. And Amazon sent it in a plastic pouch. And then the tubes, they're about 7 inches high and 2 inches in diameter, or a little less. They came wrapped in plastic. And then that wrapped in plastic set of tubes, 8 of them, was wrapped in another clear plastic. It wasn't like sealed air or anything like that. It wasn't a buffer. It was just for some reason, the manufacturer, it wasn't Amazon's fault, but the manufacturer decided, hey, wrapped it in plastic, let me wrap it again in plastic. And then Amazon bought it or ordered it, shipped it, whatever Amazon does with this stuff. And by God, I ordered it last night and got it today because my wife is an Amazon Prime member. And it's just like, I can kind of understand wrapping it once in plastic, maybe. Not that they needed to. They could have used paper or something like that. But doing it twice, this is crazy because that is not recyclable. There's no purpose to it. There's no point to it. And that's what we're facing right now in our economy, and true around the world too. So 1, 2, and 5 is recyclable. Keep putting your bottles in the recyclable thing because those do have recycling value when they're chopped up. But certainly don't expect chemical recycling, advanced recycling, they like to call it, to solve anything, because that's basically heating this stuff up with high energy, and God knows what kind of pollution happens out of doing that. And it's not working anyway. There's like 11 such facilities across the country, and they don't do much. Some of them are broken down or have gone bankrupt, and the others are only doing a very small amount of so-called plastic recycling, and that's why our recycling rate is so bad.
What if they don't have the chasing arrows or the number or anything like that? Like it's just, those bottles like Coca-Cola, for instance, with the knobs on the bottom?
I'm not familiar with that, but if you can't find a recycling thing on it, then it probably has no value whatsoever. I mean, the major manufacturers have agreed to do this. And this, getting back to why Kathy called us together, this is why faith-based groups can have an impact, because you have an audience of 100, 200, 300, 400 people, whatever your denomination may be in your locality, and you can get this message out to people. Yes, keep recycling the bottles with a 1 or a 2. Most people don't understand that. I mean, the survey after survey after survey. If you go into your denomination and you're all together and you ask, does anybody know what a 1 and a 2 means on the bottom of a bottle? And they'll say, find out for yourself how many know what that means. And so we need this kind of collective action. And that's why when I suggest, return to sender, return to the merchant, certainly in New Jersey, because we haven't this EPR bill in the hopper, and it just passed the Environment Committee, but we're not real optimistic it'll get any further. We have to, somebody just wrote return to Amazon. Amazon, not necessarily. Well, yeah, if you didn't buy it at your store, why not return it to Amazon? I'm not quite sure how you would do it. You could go to the Amazon warehouse in your neighborhood, everybody. Those are all possibilities, I guess, and say, hey, I don't need this anymore. All yours. That's all I'm suggesting.
Could I first of all say I love your attitude. if if you were I'll start a fan club. I love your attitude. I love your enthusiasm. This is great. And I'm so confident that you will win. I am prompted to ask not just you, all of us. I'm prompted to ask the next question. So if your Diet Coke, or if people who continue to imbibe, in this type of fashion, want to continue to buy those products. Manufacturers obviously want to sell us stuff that we don't need, so they want to keep selling it. What will it be packaged in? If not plastic, what? And I'm asking because I've been thinking about this very seriously myself, because I want to be able to say you don't need to use plastic. I mean, that's the real shame. That's the real crime here. Not only are you using something to package our food that's poisoning us first when we consume the contents of your product, we're also poisoning our environment, which further poisons everything everywhere all at once, because Earth is a dynamic system. And they said, gosh, thanks for pointing that out. Never knew that. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to package your Coke in glass, aluminum. What? I mean, what should we propose?
One of the things, and I'm on the National Advisory Board for Beyond Plastics, and one of the things you can do is have reusable containers for liquids. Some of us are old enough to remember when, and by the way, I grew up in Madison, Wisconsin. So, and I remember returning my Pepsi bottles, because I preferred Pepsi over Coke, and getting a few pennies, a couple pennies, whatever, back on it. And that allowed me to buy more Pepsi.
Right.
Kid.
Right. So, I mean, I personally, I am a big fan of glass, infinitely recyclable, as is aluminum, but it's more expensive and probably better suited, in my opinion, for more industrial purposes, just as an allocation of resources matter. I'm all about glass. I think glass fixes just about everything. So if it's a deposit system that we're proposing, then they're going to start throwing out the fact that, well, now we're going to have increased fossil fuel usage and carbon greenhouse gas releases, because emissions, because of the trucking, the increased weight for schlepping this stuff around. And then we're going to have COVID again or something like it someday. And they're going to say people don't want to reuse something. They don't have confidence that it's been actually sterilized properly. Tracy over in Virginia used that thing last week and she looks like crap today. I don't want to use anything she might have been drinking from. I mean, we're going to have those issues, and they can be addressed, but that's the kind of thing where I'm so confident personally that we'll be able to annihilate plastic as a single use, product, package, vessel, if not in my lifetime, within the lifetime, of the next generation. That I want to look ahead. I want to look beyond the plastic and say, so it's not plastic anymore. What will it be, and how will that work, and why is that better in the aggregate and the net effect of what we're doing to the planet and ourselves?
Excellent questions. I can tell you that corporations are working on this. I met a woman just a couple of days ago at a political event who owns a company that makes machinery that cuts and seals the plastic bags that you get your chips in from companies like Frito-Lay and
multi-layered, yeah.
Yeah. And she said they have scientists working on alternatives. So that gives me hope. And what was it? I can't remember the name of the merchant of the beer company, but I have a relative and I had to open up the container. She ordered six packs or 4 6-packs of beer by Amazon, I guess. And so I opened it up, and there were the 4 6-packs wrapped in cardboard, or thin cardboard like they used to do, and a glass advertising the company, a beer glass, a beer stein, if you will. Except they had twisted some cardboard into this weird spiral shape. And by God, the glass didn't break. And it was in the same box with the 6-packs. And there was no plastic in there. There were no plastic popcorn things in there. It was just, I was blown away with this.
What kind of container was the beer itself in, if I could ask?
Oh, that was in a can. It was in a can.
Cool.
Which is, very recyclable.
Right.
It was just a crazy, crazy thing. While somebody else talks, I'm going to look and see if I took a picture of that and I'll post it. But it was crazy. So that gives me hope.
Claudia
Thanks,
has
yeah.
waiting patiently with her hand up. So I just want to make sure we get to you before we conclude.
Sorry.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions that were answered, but I just have two little things. One is I liked this idea of doing some sort of public demonstration of how plastic is affecting people and possibly bringing it somewhere. And my husband's from Guatemala, and he at some point sent me a video of Lake Atitlan, this beautiful lake that got filled with plastic, and all these indigenous women put it in baskets on their head. They tried to solve the problem, but it didn't get solved. So they put it in baskets on their heads and carried it to City Hall and just kept dumping it on the grounds of City Hall. So I think having a real clear place to bring it would be useful as a way, but to involve first an attempt to solve the problem with the grocery store or whatever, and then if it wasn't solved, then to bring it. And then my question was, would it be wise at our churches to just have people to give the instruction to throw all plastic away except 1, 2, and 5? Is that the recommendation of Beyond Plastic?
We run into this question all the time. I'm going to let Alexis take that one since she's back in our room, even though she's chewing. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was reading the chat and totally missed your question.
You're just saying, do we just throw away everything that's not a 1, 2, or 5?
I feel like this is up to you individually. Well, I know what Judith would say. Judith would say check if number 5 is recycled in your area. I, avoid it at all costs if I can, and I actually just throw away all my plastic because I know it's just going to get recycled and shed microplastics in the recycling process and be downcycled. But that's my individual choice, and I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. So if you feel better recycling it, go for it. And but just check that your municipality accepts number 5, because if they don't accept it, it just costs them money to put it in that bin.
So I guess I was asking the question because people are so, I mean, we're having we have a green team at our church, and people are so into recycling that I'm wondering if that wouldn't make an impact to say, please throw it away, it's causing problems. So, except for 1, 2, if that would create some change.
Personally, I think the message of telling people to throw their plastic away or not recycle it is going to come off the wrong way to people who don't understand that plastics can't be recycled. So a better message is to educate people on why they should avoid the plastic in the first place, and explain why it doesn't get recycled. And if you need help on talking points on that, I would love to help you. Also, Greenpeace had a wonderful report on this very topic last year, and I'll put that in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And now, as we are at 8:30, Alexis, did you have anything you wanted to conclude with? I just wanted to share this lovely hymn that has been gifted to us.
No, I would love to hear this hymn, and just thank you, Derek, for joining us today.
And Derek, did you have any parting words for us?
No, just thank you for thank you all for being here. Thank you for your I just love listening to this conversation. It's good to know that you all are out here fighting the good fight. The link for Plastic Jesus is in the chat, and this year's Earth Day resource will be coming out either the end of this week or beginning of next week, and it's going to be more focused around renewable energy. But thank you all for the time and for all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to put a link to this lovely hymn that is available now in the updated toolkit for houses of worship. That is the sheet music there. And then I am going to pull up this recording, which was put together by Reverend Casey Carbone in the Hudson Valley. And hopefully I can figure out how to, I'm going to share my screen. And then
Just gotta hit share audio.
Share sound. Got it.
Yep.
All right, here we go. And thank you very much to Carolyn Gillette. Her husband, Bruce, is on the call tonight. So please extend all of our thanks. You can part whenever you like. And I'll move our candle back.
God of love, you formed creation. You made everything with care. Then you told us, have dominion, tend the land and sea and air. We are helpers in your garden, called to love and plant and still. Yet it seems we are replacing things of life with things that kill. We have filled your world with plastic till it gathers in the seas, till it settles on the landscape, till it carries on the breeze. There is plastic in our water, in our bodies, in your church. We pretend it doesn't matter, but it harms us and the earth. God, you call us to be stewards as we labor and invent. We are grateful for the plastics that we see as heaven sent. There are things that truly save us, like syringes and IVs. In a world that's filled with plastic, we are grateful, God, for these. Yet it's often for convenience that we make the world a mess. We confess our own resistance to the better things that bless. For our water comes in bottles that we use and throw away. We have made a pile of troubles that grows bigger every day. God of love, you form creation, making everything everything with care. There is much we could be doing for the land and sea and air. We are thankful for your garden. May we show it in our lives. May we care for what you've given till your whole creation thrives. May we care for what you've given till your whole creation thrives.
Good night. From me, at least.
Yeah, thank you.
Go in peace to love and serve the Lord, as we say in church.
Good night. Thank you.